Good evening. I've been thinking a lot lately about, it's kind of this train of thought that I've had really for the past few months on how to perceive godliness and how to create a proper perception of what is good and what is bad, because the world is complex in a lot of ways, but it's rather simple when we take the right approach and mindset. So I thought it would be a good place to start in my thoughts at the presupposed point that we can all agree it is good and meaningful to seek God. We're all here because we have felt that deep meaning and value from aiming at perfection and striving for it. Right? There are some people who are wandering in the world and they haven't quite felt that attachment or that click of I should be seeking something that is perfect. But since we're all in agreement at that point, I feel like that's a good point to work from. So I thought of two ways to perceive godliness, and I want to start with the first, which is to search and educate ourselves for what is good. Right, to search for what is good and to educate ourselves. It's clear to me that we ought to constantly be taking on the form of a student when it comes to goodness and righteousness and all that we admire in different characters and different stories of the Bible. We're students of that, always. And if we're not, then good. Life is going good. If that's how we feel, if we feel confident enough to say, I don't so much admire as many people, maybe we are succeeding morally and we feel that our conscience is clean. And maybe at times it's pride to not have admiration for pure qualities. So I want to start with the point of aim. Where can we aim in our lives? Since we all agree that there is a necessity for aim, right? There's a necessity for us to set goals for tomorrow, for next week, for next month, short term and long term. We have to have goals and aims in our life. Otherwise, what are we doing? We're wandering without goals. So we must aim. And what do we aim at? It seems obvious that we must aim at an ideal, right? That's by definition what should be striven after. Maybe it's humility, maybe it's patience, righteousness, goodness, whatever it is that invokes that feeling of, well, I want to pursue this. I feel desires to pursue this virtue or this thing at this moment. And it's not always the same thing, is it? Some of us, it's I'm pursuing patience, or I'm pursuing, mastering my emotions, or I'm pursuing righteousness. It's particular and it's individual for each of us, but it's obvious that we have to pursue an ideal. But that's not very easy, is it? To pursue just an idea, because it's intangible. It's just a word. It's just a thought until it's put into action. So we pursue what we admire in characters, in people, in stories. Just as we see in biblical stories, there are certain parts that may invoke feelings of awe or admiration, and that's what we cling to. It's not told to us, hey, pursue this. This guy did the right thing. Pursue this. We know that. We feel it in our conscience. There are stories of evil and there are stories of good within the Bible. And we don't need to be told which is which because of our conscience. We know what to pursue. And we have that ability to distinguish. That's part of what we are blessed with as humans. We know the good and we know the bad and we know the difference. So let's pursue, right, an ideal or a virtue through a character. And that got me thinking a bit about how a virtue is embodied. And it's embodied through a character in any story that we read, but it's embodied truly in the act that the character partakes in. It's their choice that it's their choice that we cling to, that we admire, right? It's the choice in the story. It's the tense moment when right is laid before someone and wrong is laid before them. And we feel that difficult decision, that moment of this is where right could happen, this is where wrong could happen, and they choose the right decision. That's that tense moment that occurs so often in many different stories. I think of the story of Elijah with Chris this morning. It really got me thinking about there's an enemy, there's a clear enemy out there, right? There is Jezebel. There are the false prophets of Baal. There are people who do not want good in the world, but want things for themselves, who are prideful, who are arrogant, and who are dangerous. And that's clearly wrong. And Elijah can feel that and knows that and feels fear at times, as we talked about this morning, feels fear for certain. And at times, well, not at times, always feels a desire to oppose that, to fight against the evil. That's never a question. It's just a question of if he can rise to the occasion and triumph and find the strength within himself to oppose evil. So then comes the point of success or failure, the outcome, this tense decision which someone finds themselves in. And whether they find success or failure isn't often what resonates with me. I don't know. I think I do. I think I know that it resonates with everyone. Whether they succeed or fail, what really resonates is whether they maintained their moral fiber or whether they went against the grain of their conscience, right? Whether you die pursuing something righteous or whether you triumph and attain something, you've taken the right path and you've listened to your conscience and you've followed God as best you can. So according to your perception of godliness, whatever it may be at that point, you have not broken yourself. You have not broken your conscience. You haven't misstepped in any way. And whether you find success or failure, it seems that unless you die, you can find redemption. So that got me thinking about the idea of redemption, right? So, I mean, it's clear that that's something that resonates with all of us, the idea of redemption, of I didn't choose the wrong path. I chose the right path, but I just bit off more than I could chew. I just fell, and I just need time to rest. I mean, you couldn't have had a better lesson this morning of that exact idea. Elijah just needed to rest after an incredible moment, but surely a draining time. He needed time to rest, and that's exactly when you continue. I think of how significant the story of, I guess it was the late 70s and the 80s, the early 1980s, the story of Star Wars. How culturally significant was that? And why did people cling so closely to this man, the Skywalker, right? Luke Skywalker. That's the first one that came to mind, and I don't think that's for no reason, right? I mean, you can see that his character through the entire series of movies, he's always striving to uphold the good in his mind, right? And, he faces basically Satan himself. You couldn't have a more evil person in Darth Vader. He faces him and he fails, right? But he doesn't die, and he doesn't break his moral fiber down to try to win. So he can find redemption, and he just continues seeking good. And that's something that we all know we should pursue And that's something that we all feel in ourselves at our strongest times. And we feel that failure all the more deeply in our weaker times. And so that character resonates with people because he redeems himself. So right, we must aim. We must set goals for ourselves, short and long-term goals. But what to aim at? That's the next question. Naturally, we need to discern for ourselves, well, what should I aim for? What's ambitious enough to challenge me in my life where I'm at? What's too much? And what's not ambitious enough? What's going to cause me to become less because I'm not growing as I should be, not challenging myself as I should be? I think about people talk about stagnation in their lives. They talk about, I don't believe it. I don't believe that anyone stays the same for such a long period of time and continues to interact with the world. I don't see that as a reality, or at least that's not how I see people. Unless we decide to become hermits and we continue to interact with the world as we're commanded to go out into the world and change it for the better, the best we can, as we interact with the world, we change. So that's why we have to aim. That's why we have to aim, because whether by our cord or by someone else's, we're going to change. We're going to be changed, or we're going to change ourselves, because each choice we make defines who we are, right? Each yes we say yes to, or each choice we say no to, that defines in other people's eyes and their perception of us, in our own eyes, who we are, what our decisions are on a daily basis. And that becomes more concrete over time. And that doesn't stay the same, because our choices change over time as we hopefully mature. So every decision and action we take clarifies and gives definition to us, right? So it's a matter of control. It's a matter of control over our own destiny, right? If we see ourselves in the future, right? We set a goal for ourselves. I should be capable of this in the future. I want to be capable of more than I am now, hopefully. That's all of our goal, right? I want to strive to become better so that I am more capable and can enact more good in the world and my surrounding community, wherever we see our outreach ending. So it's a matter of control, right? Others can control us by our lack of aim, by our wandering, or we can control us by our aim. And that's an interesting thing to think about, because if we have no specific goal for our life, if we have no specific aim for the near or distant future, either one, everything around us is just fog. There's no discerning what's helpful or what's hurtful or what will slow me down or what will aid me. Nothing is clear. But as soon as we set an aim and a direction and a path, the entire world just organizes itself around us in obstacles and aids. It becomes so clear when you know I am here and I want to be there. Every single thing will become clearly defined as this will help me get there, or this will hurt me and this will not help me get there. So I think that is what allows us to become more efficient day after day, and that's what allows us to move faster and more confidently. Not in an arrogant, boastful sort of way, but confident in knowing my mission, in knowing my goal at hand, and moving towards it. So we have to set our eye on a target. We have to set we don't have to set multiple targets, but multiple targets is beneficial, right? Because I don't just care about me today, I care about me tomorrow, I care about me next week, and me a year from now. Hopefully, if we've clarified goals so much, if we've clarified goals enough to ourselves, we have that idea of our tomorrow self in mind, of next year's self in mind. So what do we aim at? That's the next question. What to aim at? Well, we aim at what is valuable to us, what's meaningful to us. what we see as lasting, what enables the most good to be done, what enables God's will to be done. Right? That's what resonates. That's what we find meaning in. So I want to think for a second through this with you on how far to aim, right? Because we all have different capabilities and gifts, and well, we can't all have the aim to be marathon runners, right? It's just not in the cards for some of us. But we can aim ambitiously enough to challenge ourselves and just push a little bit more and just get a little bit more than I would have had out of myself if I had not tried for it, if I had not been ambitious. So I guess the goal is something that is ambitious enough that it scares you a little bit. Our goals should scare us a little bit because there's no guarantee of attaining them, right? If we have a goal in mind, if we feel we know God's will in our lives, we have dedicated ourselves to having a goal in mind that serves that, well, it has to be something that scares us because, goodness, if we care about it, we want to achieve that goal. And if we believe it carries out more good in the world, if we succeed at that goal, then we want it, and we should. So it's right in between what challenges us enough to scare us, but not break us. And so that seems the optimal point, and that's so individual, isn't it? That's something that only God knows and we know at our hearts. So I think now of the second way to perceive godliness in a proper manner in accordance with God's will. And that's to listen and understand our conscience. I think of in Romans when Paul speaks of the conscience, in verse 15 of chapter 2 he says, "The requirements of the law are written on their hearts. Their consciences are also bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accusing them and other times even defending them." And right, I'm plucking this a bit out of context, but what we do know, no matter what, is that we have a conscience, and it will allow us to discern right from wrong and good from evil, as long as we are looking in the right places. If we trust our sources, which we do, then we can trust our conscience. If we trust the knowledge that we have gained and the purity of our heart, then we can trust our conscience. And maybe we feel that we're foolish at times and we're evil at times, and that's true. So go back to the learning part. There's no end to either one of these points. It's interchangeable. We learn, we teach ourselves, we challenge ourselves, and we listen to the conscience. That's what we have when we're on the go. When we're out in the world interacting, all we have is our minds and our conscience. That's what we have to guide us. And sometimes, unfortunately, our emotions, right? Although we need to tamper these and control these. That makes me think a bit too that at times I'll convince myself that I can't control my emotions. Just they come upon me, but that's not true at all. Right? That's a weak mindset to have, and I don't truly believe that one bit. I get angry at times, for certain, and it's immature, that's for sure. But I will not believe that I can't control that, right? We know that we can tamper our emotions in any circumstance, and we can allow our analytical thoughts and our moral compass and our conscience to dictate our decisions and our choices. I think too about in the context of Paul talking about the conscience being written on the hearts of man and bearing witness to our thoughts and accusing them and defending them at times. Right? Many of the people that lived then were not educated in the same fashion that we were. So how much more of a standard should we hold ourselves to, given that we are all capable of educating ourselves at any point, right? This is, at certain points in history, this is a privilege to be able to educate yourself to the point that we're capable Right, so I think about that too, but I digress from that. Right, we may believe ourselves evil and foolish at the core, at times, yes, but we go back and we search and educate ourselves. Right, so become sensitive to the inner workings of our conscience. And why is that important? As a guide, naturally, we need a guide in ourselves, and we need something that we can trust, that we will not feel pain and remorse and regret over later. There's no worse feeling than laying your head down on the pillow at night and feeling remorse and regret for a decision that you made because you weren't sensitive to your conscience in the moment. This is something that we can become sensitive to, but at times we just think, I need to think properly, analytically here. I need to take everything else out of the equation, and I need to think, in a way that doesn't involve that. I've thought that way before, and I've thought to myself afterwards, after the moment of decision of choice passes, why would I ever negate that from my choices? Why would I ever negate my own conscience from any choice? So right, it's a guide, always a guide. And I think too of nothing, there's no better feeling of working confidently, swiftly throughout your day in pursuing a goal, maybe a short or long-term goal, and feeling that pride, not in an arrogant sort of way, but pride in knowing that I'm carrying out the will of something that is bigger than myself and better than myself. And in moments of pause throughout the day, which I take, I feel on those best days that swelling of maybe not pride. I wouldn't know exactly what to call it, but something similar to that, where I know I'm doing the right thing, and it just pushes me forward. And then I really listen to that, and I really think at the end of the day, when I lay my head down on the pillow, I feel such joy and pride at the end of those days. And just the same as there's no worse feeling than feeling remorse and regret at the end of the day, there's no better feeling than knowing you're carrying out God's will at the end of the day. And you feel that. You feel it. Right? So the most foundational point that I want to talk about is to resolve to progress our lives. I thought about this because in stories we read, every single story we read, there's a character that is trying for good, and there's an evil character opposing them. Right? That's just the archetype of a traditional story. There's an evil and there's a good, and the two fight each other. But at times, we don't have that in our lives. There are days when seemingly nothing is opposing us, and at times that's been what motivates me, is fighting against what we see as evil. And I realize that that's because of a lack of aim. If I aim for something that I see as good, then what's behind me is for certain evil. And that might be pulling me, or that might be inserting itself to make pursuing good more difficult. And right, that's the fight. That's the fight for good, is fighting against whatever we see as evil and opposing good. But at times there's not much of that. There's just us, and it's just our minds. And we have to make the decision anyway, without a Darth Vader. Forgive me for the reference again. Without, someone physically, clearly evil standing right in front of us to oppose us, we still have to make the decision for good. And sometimes that evil makes it easier to choose good, because you say clearly, I'm going to go the opposite direction of this evil man with the red lightsaber, right? It's obvious. So Right. I think of there is a disparity of I don't want to go into too much detail, but there's a disparity of certain people in my life who I've developed relationships with. I see them old, young, middle-aged, but there's a disparity between those who have resolved to continue to progress their life, their character, to continue to grow, and those who have become stagnant. And like I said earlier, I don't really believe that we become stagnant. I believe that we regress in a way when we cease to progress. But we can all think of someone who has lost touch with their ideals or with their vigor to pursue good and to pursue virtue in their life and to pursue God. And it's sad, and you see lost potential day after day, and especially over long periods of time, you just ache for them, and you think of what they could be and what everyone else around them could be, right? What their family, what their community could be like if they continue to challenge themselves. And maybe that's something that we should speak to others about, because imagine the encouragement you could bring to someone if you say, hey, I see such potential in you. Why not keep challenging yourself? Think of all that you could accomplish. And at times that's so much easier to see in someone else than it is in ourselves, right? So imagine, if we were all to go out of here, and all those people who I'm sure in all of our prayers and all of our thoughts at times of, man, I just wish you could progress and just find it within yourself to continue to challenge yourself. If we could speak that to them, I don't think that would cause fights. I think that would cause tears in a good way. And I think that would encourage people. I mean, imagine the encouragement if you were told by someone you knew, hey, I don't mean to get on you, but man, you could be a lot more. Like, I see so much in you. That would encourage me. But anyway, that's just a thought on that. To miss the mark is sin, right? To transgress the law is sin, but to never take aim after anything, I believe that's just as bad, if not worse. I mean, it makes me think of the parable of the talents, right? In I guess two servants were given 5 or so, talents. An amount of money is the important thing here. They were given a certain amount of money by their master, and they were told to go out and do good with it and produce and make it flourish and make more from this. You were given a certain amount, progress, make more, right? And one of the servants is given a smaller sum of money, and out of fear, he buries it, hides it away. And then the master comes back, and the one who hid it presents it to him as if it's acceptable. I couldn't really determine why. You present it to him almost like, here's what I did. I hid it because I was really afraid. I don't know exactly what the tone is there, but either way, I mean, wicked and slothful servant is what he's called. Wicked and slothful. And that's very similar conclusion to what I came to. And go figure, right? That's Jesus. So of course he's going to have the right outlook on that. We're given very much, each of us. We're given the ability to educate ourselves. We're given our unique talents. We're given our conscience, and let's not fear. Let's go and challenge ourselves. I don't believe that the master returning would have been nearly upset if he said, hey, I got a little too ambitious and I lost more money than I made. He would have said, well, at least you tried. Or at least that's what I think he would have said. So aim. Aim for something personal, something's difficult, something that brings out the best in us. And later in that parable, I think, gives us the perfect summary. take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has more, everyone who has, will more be given. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. So sooner or later, we got to use it or lose it. And I see that in people, right? People grow old and wither long before their age requires it. Let's push the envelope, you know. Well, that's pretty much all I had. And time got away from me a little bit, but that's just what I've been thinking about lately. So thank you for your time, and let's aim at some things. Let's make some goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.